Hey, hi, howdy. I'd like to first apologize for the hostage negotiation video lighting going on. I'm rushing this video because I have a lot to prepare for this channel, and I just need to get this video done. So don't expect some ski mask man to pop his head in and ask for my ransom or anything. So anyway, there's this thing called National Novel Writing Month, and it happens every November, and the goal is to just write 50,000 words of a manuscript by the end of November. In the normally formatted novel, that's about 200 pages, I think. So it's a fairly short novel, but the goal is to have a novel written by the end of the month. Now, I've participated in National Novel Writing Month many times, and I have failed National Novel Writing Month many times as well. The furthest I got, I think, was 20,000 words or something like that. And I just could never keep up the pace. It's 1,667 words per day if you want to maintain a steady pace throughout the month. And yeah, I just never could finish a novel for National Novel Writing Month. And it was something that I'd been really kind of pursuing for a very long time. So let's see if I can remember everything that I tried and failed over the years. The first one was something I started in middle school called True Story. And it was basically about a guy who gets abducted by aliens and then sort of accidentally ends up on the galactic FBI's #1 most wanted list, and he just has to prove his innocence, get back home. It actually started out as a serial kind of thing where I would email chapters to a list of subscribers every week. And I actually got pretty far doing that, but eventually I kind of burned out, and I reached 40,000 words. And it kind of fizzled out at that point. The second project I attempted was something called The Grain in the Sand, The Soul in the Stars. And that was a sort of very esoteric, mystical kind of story where a man hitches a ride with a body into the afterlife. And it was sort of like a very Orpheus type tale where he's traveling through the afterlife and finding meaning, and that was an interesting story. It was really me trying to be very deep about things that I probably couldn't have been very deep about at that time. Then in my senior year of high school, I tried to actually reboot True Story because the manuscript had reached 40,000 words, but it was still started in middle school and actually just straight up had chapters that were fan fiction of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So I decided to restart the whole thing, and didn't get very far with that. So after high school, I took a break. I was really discouraged by my multiple attempts and my failures. I just couldn't get anything substantial done. I didn't even get close to 50,000 words most of the time, and it was just demoralizing in a way that I was just disappointing myself. So I didn't do anything in college, partly because I didn't have the time as well. But after a while, I did a music project where I made music every day for a year. And that actually went really well. And I thought maybe I have the chops to actually finish something this time. So 4 years after the previous attempt at NaNoWriMo, I decided I would try this again. And I sort of had a process that I went into it with. At the beginning of October, I sat down and I decided I'm gonna just sit down, no distractions, brainstorm for 30 minutes, just ideas for stories, just write down concepts and just go through that, just make a list as long as I can within 30 minutes. And it's a pretty difficult activity, but the longer that you go, the more interesting your ideas become, because you get all the obvious ones out and then you have to keep thinking of more and more unique ideas that aren't the first ones to come to mind. And so I had this list of possible novel ideas, and for the rest of October, I would actually write in increasing word goals, because you want to reach the goal of 1,667 words per day. I wanted to sort of bump up to that level. So I would start out with 500 words, then write 600, 700, 800, just kind of incrementing up. And I would write different snippets from each of these story ideas. And these snippets are all available on firstdraftsonly.wordpress.com, where I ended up trying to publish the idea that I eventually went with, which was something called Visitors. Now, Visitors was interesting. I got an interest in horror over the years, and I wanted to write a horror, sort of Stephen King kind of story. So it's about this small town, and it mainly focuses on this one girl who's like 8 years old. She's caught in the middle of this marriage that's about to end in divorce, and as this sort of tension is happening on that level, the peaceful nature of the town is interrupted when just a ton of cars just stream into this town. It's very unusual to have visitors, and there are many visitors, and they're all very strange. So it's basically like this mysterious mob, this sort of hive mind moves into the town, and nobody knows who they are or what they want. They're not talking to anybody. It's sort of about how tension explodes in these small spaces, you know. And I didn't finish that one, but the 4 chapters that I did manage to write are available on First Drafts Only. So you can check them out if you'd like, and I think I would like to continue it at some point. So that brings us to 2019. I wanted to try NaNoWriMo again, and I felt like I had a shot at actually achieving it. I still was hopeful. I think it was in September that I came across, this is going to be so random, but I came across the sort of the Dwarf Fortress subreddit, and they were creating a tournament. So if you don't know, Dwarf Fortress is an ASCII sort of style game that is notorious for being immensely difficult to understand and get into. It's got many layers of systems in the code that allow for very sophisticated simulations of large fortresses of really sort of personality-driven dwarves, and there's a really robust combat system, which it's all very surprising that that's in that game, but it has the level of complexity that the subreddit actually hosted a tournament, a sort of gladiator tournament. So this is how a community tournament worked in the game. Users would create characters in their game. They would give the stats to the organizers, who would recreate that character and then pit the characters against each other in gladiatorial combat. And it was really interesting. It was very fascinating to watch, because these people would all write backstories for the characters. They would write short stories about where they came from and everything. It was a very creative process, and a lot of people grew very attached to certain characters. But the thing that was deciding who won or lost was the game. And the game was very brutal. So some favorites would just get torn apart. Some people would continue on, and it was a very interesting experience. And I was inspired by that. I wanted to write something that kept me on edge, and wanted something that I wanted to know the end of, which you don't necessarily have when you're writing a novel and you know the entire plot. So I wanted to recreate that in novel format. I thought of a concept. I thought of a fantasy world where these 9 characters are sort of inexplicably driven to battle each other to the death until one survives. This is Alex, like 20 minutes in the future, I forgot to say the name of the novel. It's called A Fable Soaked in Blood, because everybody dies. So, yeah. That involved writing out a computer script that determined plot points for me, and I wouldn't see the next plot point until I finished the current one. So, it's, yeah, and it worked. I'll talk about the details of the computer script and how it works in a separate video, but I basically had to write out 9 characters who could all possibly be protagonists. The script chose a protagonist for me. That level of pre-prepared depth. Pre-prepared? Prepared? Pre-prepared. That level of pre-prepared depth. That level of pre-prepared depth allowed me to reach 50,000 words along the way. But the funny thing is, I'm only halfway through the story. Maybe not even halfway. Like, I'm still very early in the story. There's still half of a novel to write. So I figured, this year, let's finish that. And last year I wanted to share the process through video of what I was doing. But it was already too late. It was almost November. I couldn't prepare anything. I'm starting a month in advance and I'm already rushing the first video. So there's a lot to talk about. But it's gonna be fun. So yeah, that's why you're here. That's why I'm here. So this is how it's gonna work. Throughout October, I'll post the first half of the novel that I wrote, chapter by chapter. While that's happening, I'll post videos about the characters and the writing process, and sort of talk about the way that the story's made me feel so far. If I have time, I actually want to also narrate the novel chapter by chapter. So I could be posting, depending on how things work, I might be posting audiobook recordings of the chapters for people who prefer it that way instead. Once November hits, the writing starts. I begin in earnest writing new material for the novel, and I think it will switch more to a vlog style format where I give updates on how the writing is going, what I'm doing, things I'm learning or experiencing, and I'll continue updating. I'll continue posting the chapters as they're finished. I'll continue hopefully posting the audiobook narration as well, and we'll see how that goes. I think based on last year and the fact that I'll be documenting this, I think it's going to be a fun experiment, and I hope you guys enjoy the process as much as I suffer through it. I'll see you guys later. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned. Things are coming very soon.